Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we're talking about the 2026 Minnesota governor's race, whose primary is taking place on Tuesday. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Republican primary happening for the governor's race in the state of Minnesota. If you're interested to know about the governor primary for the Democrats as well, we will briefly touch on that, though it's going to be a lot less competitive on the primary side than the Republican one. So first things first, we're going to get into some of the basics about this race, some of the fundamentals. We'll talk about each of the candidates, and then we'll finish with my election prediction for how I think the governor's race primary is going to go. So if you're unfamiliar, the state of Minnesota currently is held by a Democratic governor, Tim Walz, who won re-election in 2022 by 7.7% against the Republican candidate, Scott Jensen. Back in 2018, President Trump's first term, the midterm, Tim Walz defeated the Republican candidate Johnson by 11.4% of the vote. So Minnesota, Walz is serving 2 terms. He was eligible to run for a 3rd term, and he actually declared running for a 3rd term for a little bit, before ultimately, as scandals came out against Tim Walz, he ultimately decided against staying in the race, and it became an open race. So Minnesota is an interesting state, as it sort of is right around the precipice of being a lean Democratic state and a likely Democratic state, depending on the race that you're looking at. For example, in 2024, Kamala Harris defeated Donald Trump here with Tim Walz as her running mate, only by 4.2% though, which is considered a lean ranking, lean being in between 1 and 5%. But in 2020, Joe Biden won the state over Donald Trump by 7.1%. 2016, Hillary Clinton defeated Donald Trump here only by 1.5%, with a lot of third-party vote helping make that margin a lot closer. But then on the Senate side, Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar won her last race in 2024 by 15.7%. In the Senate race before that, in 2020, Tina Smith won by 5.2%, just barely a likely Democratic win. And in 2018, again, in that same President Trump midterm year as the governor's race, Amy Klobuchar won by 24 points. But the Senate race with Tina Smith was a likely Democratic win of 10.6. So Minnesota, depending on the election and depending on the candidates, can literally be anywhere from a safe, likely, or lean Democratic state. But it does seem to have a Democratic lean and Democratic trend in that state. So why am I telling you all this? Well, because it's going to be important context for 2026, as after Tim Walz announced that he was not seeking re-election, U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar has officially announced that she's running in the race, and she'll be the Democratic candidate for the general election. So in terms of general election performance, the Democrats are putting up arguably the strongest Democratic candidate, probably, or not just in the state of Minnesota, arguably for this election, maybe even across the entire country, in Amy Klobuchar for this race. So automatically, the Republicans' chances at winning this race are heavily stacked against them, with Amy Klobuchar leading the Democratic ticket in the state of Minnesota. Now we get to the Republican side, where there are a lot of candidates running. 3 of them at this current point in time have stood out among the rest. There's Kendall Qualls, who is a healthcare technology executive, who was a nominee for the 3rd District in 2020 and was a candidate for governor in 2022. There's Lisa Demuth, who's the Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives from the 13th A District from 2019 to now to present. And then the candidate that you're probably watching this video for is Mike Lindell, the founder and CEO, or former CEO of MyPillow. That's where he got a lot of his fame. He was also a candidate for RNC chair in 2023 and a very big vocal supporter of President Trump, and a lot of statements President Trump made regarding the 2020 election. Mike Lindell essentially ran with that and went even more further extreme with a lot of those statements. Now, in terms of that, though, Lindell and his loyalty to Trump has certainly paid off for this primary, as Mike Lindell has the endorsement of President Donald Trump, who made it just a few weeks ago, in his support in this primary. Lisa Demuth has some endorsements from a handful of state representatives and senators in the state of Minnesota. Kendall Qualls has the overall endorsement of the Republican Party of Minnesota, at their state convention, and a handful of state legislatures as well. There also were some candidates that were previously in the race, including Peggy Bennett, a state representative, and Scott Jensen, the nominee from 2022, that did withdraw from the race. So with all these candidates in the race, Mike Lindell, Kendall Qualls, and Lisa Demuth are expected to finish in the top 3 and consolidate a lot of that vote. Now, Minnesota is not like some of these other states where you have to break 50% of the vote to win the primary. Whoever gets the most amount of votes in this primary will win. So we're going to see a candidate likely win without breaking 50% of the vote. The question it's ultimately going to be, which one ends up doing that. In terms of money right now, it's not an even playing field per se in terms of who's raised money. Mike Lindell's raised the most at roughly about $650,000. Kendall Qualls at $211,000. Lisa Demuth $360,000. So Mike Lindell almost has nearly double the amount Lisa Demuth does. But in terms of cash on hand, it's no debate. Lisa Demuth is leading right now at $517,000 or so dollars. But for polling data, it shows Mike Lindell is currently in the lead, and President Trump's endorsement certainly could have played a very large role in this. The most recent poll we have from Survey USA in between July 15th and 20th showed that Mike Lindell had 35% of the vote, Lisa Demuth had 26%, Kendall Qualls had 11%, 5% going to other candidates, 22% of the vote undecided. The rest of the polls from before that was prior to Mike Lindell getting the endorsement of President Trump, but they showed very competitive races that either Lindell or Lisa Demuth was winning, though Kendall Qualls did have a lot more support in those polls as well. So what's going to happen here is going to be interesting because Lindell definitely seems to have a large share of that vote locked up. It is also interesting that he has the endorsement of President Trump as well. Now, 22% of the vote undecided, though, can make for a very big difference in this race. And those other candidates splitting the vote could play a very important role as well in how this race may ultimately shake out. As I mentioned, there was a Minnesota Republican Party, their party caucus they held, and they showed that Lisa Demuth ultimately won the party straw poll for governor with about 32% of the vote. Kendall Qualls finished in second at 25.28%, but Mike Lindell finished in third at 17.7% of the vote, or technically 17.69% of the vote. And Mike Lindell gave a speech at this convention that angered a lot of party insiders in Minnesota, saying essentially that the caucus doesn't mean anything and their votes don't mean anything. He's going to continue to be on the ballot anyway. And it obviously rubbed a lot of Minnesota Republicans the wrong way, but he got the endorsement of President Trump after that. So now it's setting up a very interesting scenario for the Republican primary, and the winning candidate will go on to the general election to face off against Amy Klobuchar. And look at these rankings. Aside from Inside Elections, who has it listed as likely Democrat, safe or solid Democrat across the board for Amy Klobuchar. And the differences here are pretty striking in terms of the margins. Not so much the victor, but the margins here. For Amy Klobuchar versus Lisa Demuth, Mason-Dixon's polling strategy from June has Klobuchar leading over Demuth 48-40 with 12% undecided, about an 8-point lead. Emerson College's poll has Klobuchar at 51, Demuth at 38. So here you're looking around like a 13-point lead for Amy Klobuchar. And then Survey USA from back in January had Demuth trailing Klobuchar at least by about 15 points in that poll. Now let's take a look at Klobuchar versus Lindell. 53-36. You're looking at around a 17-point lead in that poll for Klobuchar over Lindell. Again, it was 8 points against Demuth, 17 points against Lindell. Emerson College, 53-31. Here it was a 13-point lead. Here, 22-point lead. Survey USA, 15-point lead, 20-point lead. Cannot stress this enough. The weakest candidate the Republicans can nominate based on the early polling is Mike Lindell, and it's Mike Lindell by a lot. Amy Klobuchar already breaking 50% of the vote by well over 2 to 3 points in these numbers. And this, without a doubt, very, very clear. Mike Lindell does not have much of a chance or any chance against Amy Klobuchar. Again, no real surprises, goes without saying how strong of a candidate Amy Klobuchar is, but Mike Lindell being the Republican could hurt Republicans down ballot, including in a lot of very important House races as well. In 2024, the 8th district was a 16-point Republican win, the 7th was a 41, the 6th was a 25, and the 1st was a 17-point. The good news to the Republicans, a lot of these districts are pretty reliably red, but could the margins get a lot more competitive? Where maybe like in 2022, they were under 15 points in the 1st and the 8th. Mike Lindell being the top of the ticket could potentially hurt the Republicans' chances in these districts. So who ends up winning is going to play a very important role here. And now here on the election simulator, electionjoy.com website, we do have a quick little simulation we can go through here of how it ultimately will shake out based on the way that I have it updated here. Obviously with the results just coming in now, but Mike Lindell is early on favored to win here. I do expect he'll end up winning this Republican primary as the results come in. And the polling shows where things currently are right now that I think Mike Lindell is favored. And it's going to keep counting until the votes are in. We're about 52% of the way in here. We'll get to the final votes in just a little bit. But I'm expecting Mike Lindell to do very well across the state, as having the endorsement of President Trump in a very split field is definitely going to help him. And even though President Trump has had a streaky track record in the last few months or so, before that in Republican primaries, he was pretty much 100% before that. And I think we're going to see something similar unfold in the state of Minnesota, because this is not just Republican Party insiders that are voting. This is Republicans across the entire state, many of whom still like the job that President Trump is doing and support the candidates that President Trump wants supported. So ultimately, I have Mike Lindell getting about 34% of the vote, Lisa Demuth getting about 27% of the vote, and Kendall Qualls about 16%, overall equating to roughly about a 7-point victory for Mike Lindell over Lisa Demuth. So that means in the Minnesota Republican primary between Lindell versus Demuth versus Qualls, I would have Lindell winning by a likely Republican margin, or a likely margin in general, which falls in between 5 and 15% margin of victory. This is where I think it'll go right now. I don't think we're going to see Lindell win by more than 15 points. It's possible if things get close, he may win by under 5, but I think that 5 to 15 point is kind of the sweet spot right now that I think Lindell ends up winning. It's definitely possible. Primaries are very unpredictable, that Lisa Demuth could end up pulling off the upset and winning in this race. But as of today, Mike Lindell certainly seems to be the odds-on favorite to win this race. The prediction market odds as well show similarly. Mike Lindell's at 79% chance to win. Lisa Demuth is at 23%. But it is interesting. These numbers have actually shifted a little bit compared to the last little bit here. I believe it's in the last day or in the last week or something like that. Lindell's gone down 7 points. Demuth has gone up 8. So the direction could be trending in the direction of Lisa Demuth over Mike Lindell, but it still certainly seems that Mike Lindell is the heavy favorite in this race on Kalshi. On Polymarket, similar. Mike Lindell's at 79. Lisa Demuth is at 21. Seems to be trending in the direction of Mike Lindell as well. And then again, if we get to the general election of Lindell versus Klobuchar, anyone's guess how that race is going to go, but it's probably not going to be going too well for the Republicans. Definitely in the governor's race. The Senate race and the House race is down ballot. We'll have to wait and see how it's affected by those. But for right now, my prediction for Tuesday's primary is that Mike Lindell will win the Republican primary for governor and set himself up for the general election against Amy Klobuchar. For now, though, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please make sure to hit like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in a future video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, I really appreciate it if you could hit like and hit subscribe as well. It really helped me and my channel out a whole lot if you could do that for me. You can see in the circle on the top left the subscribe here button to subscribe to the channel. On the right, there are going to be 2 video pop-ups for you. My latest video will be on the top, and a recommended playlist by myself will be on the bottom as well. In the bottom left of the screen, you'll see my channel name, Anthony's Election Center, which you are currently watching. On my Facebook, Anthony.ElectionCenter is also there. And if you want to reach out to me on email, anthpredicts@gmail.com is my email. Feel free to pause the video if you need to. If you want to look for any of these, obviously in more time, please feel free. But for now, though, that is it. I really thank you all for watching and hope to see you in a future video.